Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high. Cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold on, we just saying hi. Five somebody rise up weekdays. Catch us live, somebody. Let's go.
Good afternoon. Good evening and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys all doing well out there. Hope this show finds you in great spirits, because another day above the dirt is always a blessing. Let's not forget that. And you know what? Honestly, I'm going to say this too. I hope you guys all enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I hope it was everything you needed it to be and more. The ones that celebrated Thanksgiving, let me just say that, because there are some people in America that don't actually celebrate Thanksgiving at all. And then there's a lot of people that do. So hopefully you guys just enjoyed your Thursday. Hopefully it was relaxing. Hopefully it was everything you needed it to be and more, okay? But hopefully everything was good, right? So please do me a favor. We got some things we've got to get into. There's a lot that was going on, okay? It's pretty insane how much has been going on over the last 24 hours, and we have got to get into this conversation. So please do me a favor, hit that like button down below, crush it, do it a do, hit that reaction button if you're watching on these other platforms. If you are watching on these other platforms like Facebook, X/Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, Twitch, Kick, I'm on all of them, so make sure you're subscribing, okay? Or following, hitting that follow. But of course, subscribe here. On my main channel here, right here on YouTube, okay? Go over to my second channel, The Pascal Show Clips and Pascal Raw. I got 3 channels. Go check them out. Hit that notification bell on all of them. Set it to all. That's, of course, after you subscribe. Set it to all so you know whenever I go live, whenever I upload, because honestly, it's breaking news and very random, to be really to be completely honest. So make sure you do that, please, and thank you, okay? Hit that join button down below. Become a member. Check out my Patreon, and, of course, check out PascalMerch.com. We got some really great stuff over there. PascalMerch.com. Check it out. Really great stuff. PascalMerch.com. All right, guys, we got to get into this conversation, okay? Now, here's the thing. There has been a crazy tragedy, a very unfortunate tragedy that happened just the other day. And I know the world, all of us are still reeling over this situation. And I gotta be honest, I'm wondering, is this a false flag? Is there something more going on here? And the only reason why I ask this is because there's just too many things that are happening around the same time that just feel like it can't just be a coinky dink. Just being completely honest, it just doesn't feel like this is just a coinky dink. Maybe, and maybe I'm the only one who thinks this, but the timeline and the things that have been lining up and the things that we have been learning about, certain entities, certain elements in this whole tragedy just seem a little bit strange. Now, here's the thing. I am not one to sit there and just keep the tinfoil hat screwed on all the time, okay? But this definitely has me put the tinfoil hat on the table, off to the side, just in case, because there are some very strange things that are going on here. And then, of course, some very tragic things. Now, for those of y'all who don't know and maybe late to the party, all right, 2 National Guardsmen were actually hit, okay, in Washington, D.C., just not very far away from the White House, okay? These 2 are identified as Sarah Beckstrom. She is 20 years old. And then, of course, Andrew Wolf. He's 24 years old, all right? They were just recently sworn in. If I have my information correct, they were just sworn in hours before they are now, or one lost their life now, and of course, another one, Andrew, is fighting for his life right now as we speak. Hours before they were actually attacked by this disturbed assailant, which we are going to be talking about here in a second. Now, for those of y'all who may not know who this assailant may be, we got to pull up his face. His name is Ramanullah Lakanwal. He is 29 years old, and he's an Afghan national. Now, here's the thing. Everybody and their mama's going to be asking all kinds of questions, right? Because, of course, right now, okay, first off, let me just say this too. We're coming out hot today. We're coming in hot today. Guns a-blazing. You want to know why? Excuse me. You want to know why? Because you know what frustrates me more than anything in the world is when we don't know the information. We don't know. We don't have all the facts lined up. But us as people, for some odd reason, not me, but there's other people out here in the world that want to turn this into some sort of political bias instantly. We didn't even know Ramanul's name yet. We didn't even know that he was, an Afghan national. We didn't know he was Muslim. We didn't know anything about this guy. I just want to point something out. Okay? I just want to make this abundantly clear. Because everybody, not everybody, but there was a good amount of people that were out there going, damn leftist. Oh, it must be trans. Oh, it must be all this stuff. When we didn't know who he was. Like I said, from that photo that we saw from afar, where it looked like he was either in his skivvies or like he was just straight up buck naked, okay? He looked white from afar. And I even said he could be any race. We don't know where this guy's from. We don't know who this person is. But people were so quick to go after and say it's the damn left. It's this leftist this and leftist right, that. And you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. Okay? That's absolutely ridiculous because now we find out who this guy is. All right? And we're now finding out more information about this guy, which is even more disturbing. Okay? But some of the things that we need to know, okay? According to authorities, they have said that this attack was actually targeted, okay? It was a targeted ambush, obviously, as we already know, near the White House, all right, in Washington, D.C. And of course, we have heard now that specialist, where is she? Sarah Beckstrom has recently passed away. She passed away yesterday, late afternoon, early evening time, or at least that's when they broke the news, okay? That this Guardswoman lost her life merely hours after being sworn in. Like I said, merely hours after being sworn in, and then went out to patrol the streets, do what she was doing. Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf and Specialist Sarah Beckstrom were both sworn in. And then hours later, we're walking down the street and we're ambushed by that monster, Ramanula, which is absolutely insane. Now, what they're saying right now is that Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, okay, he is still, obviously, he's hospitalized and he's in some serious critical condition. He is literally fighting for his life in that hospital. And I got to be honest, man, like, I don't care where you stand politically on this situation. If you agree with with National Guard being deployed in DC or any place in this country, or if you are absolutely radically against it, it doesn't matter. Whether you like the fact that they were out there in these streets or not, they don't deserve to lose their lives like this. This young woman who's out there serving her country should not be gone right now. Her family should not be grieving during Thanksgiving. They should be giving thanks for life and having their loved ones still on this side of the soil. But unfortunately, she's lost her life. And this young man right here is fighting for his life. Because people want to take matters into their own hands for some strange reason and do what they did. Now, I'm still confused about Ramanullah Lackenwall. I want to understand what the F is going on. I truly do, because it doesn't make sense what happened here. I mean, when you start doing some math a little bit, and some people already started doing the math, it does start to math. The equation seems very, very simple. It's almost 2 + 2 = 4. All right. It's very simple math. That is if these claims and what they're saying out here in these streets is absolutely 110% true. Now, when it comes to Ramanula Lackenwall, all right, we are now starting to understand that, of course, after Sarah Beckstrom lost her life, they are now have upgraded those charges now to a murder degree or to a murder charge. Okay. That's what we now know. Okay. It's already going to happen. All right. And of course, he's looking at some other charges like assault charges and firearm charges. Okay. But the question I think everybody wants to know is, what is the story surrounding this guy? Who is this guy? And some of these things are going to be very, very shocking to you when we start going into this information here in just a second. Okay. The suspect reportedly worked previously with U.S. linked forces in Afghanistan under a CIA-backed unit before entering the U.S. under a humanitarian program. I'm not kidding. And I'm telling you right now, some people are going to be right here saying, hey, this is all fake news. In fact, Trump just called one of the reporters who was just asking questions stupid. He said, are you stupid? For asking questions about his connections to the CIA mother-loving A. Yes, y'all. The CIA. And it's not a joke. Not a joke. This man was working with a CIA, I guess, group program called Zero Units. We're going to talk about that here in a second. What the hell is Zero Units? What's that all about? What actually is going on here? Is there something else going on within this situation? And I think there could be. But first, just a little quick down memory lane so that you guys can see this too, okay? This happened just a little bit ago. Remember this?
All right, Fox News alert. This is breaking right now. We can confirm now 2 National Guard troops have been shot in Washington near the White House is what we are told. We do not know about their conditions at this time. We are just starting to get brand new details, but we can confirm 2 military personnel have been shot near the White House. Paul Morrow is joining us by phone. He's a retired NYPD inspector. Paul, we're just starting to get details here. What can you add to what we've learned so far?
Well, obviously it's very sketchy at this point, but your mind has to go to the fact that, of course, the National Guard has been deployed as an anti-crime measure in Washington. So while normally we would think of the White House as being, okay, maybe they were securing the White House, that's not really what they do. The National Guard doesn't really have that as a primary role. You have the Capitol Police and Secret Service and other elements there. Can the National Guard be involved? Sure. But where my mind goes right now is the fact that they've been out there using their omnipresence as a deterrent. I keep making this point on the air. A lot of people misunderstand the role of the National Guard in this counter-crime stuff. They're not there to answer 911 calls, to boom doors, to get cats out of trees. Their thing is to stand there, be present, be a deterrent. They look very impressive in the uniforms. We have them here in New York and have since 9/11. Something else that people miss. We've had them for 25 years here in our transportation hubs. But all you can think right now is, just thinking logically, is this sounds like, at this point, you have to consider, is this something relative to the crime deployment that we know is going on in Washington?
Yeah, Paul, to orient our viewers a little bit, so you're looking live at a shot of the White House, but the incident, this shooting apparently occurred at 17th and I Street, which is about 2 or 3 blocks away from the White House. It's right by Lafayette Park and the Farragut Metro. One of the deployments tactics of the National Guard was to put them around these downtown metro stop areas. And so you would normally on any given day see a few guard troops in these areas. But this location, I'm wondering if you make anything about the fact that this is one of the central areas in downtown, just blocks from the White House.
Well, Griff, I think you make a very good point. That has been one of the sort of salient locations in all of this, going back, in fact, to the riot that we had there around the monument and all of that. So it's quite conceivable that if somebody is trying, again, we're just speculating now, but if somebody is trying to send a message, you'd have to think that that would be a place that has particular significance. But either way, I was just down in D.C. To testify to Congress, actually, and you see them around. And I passed two of them, 3 in the morning, 3 in the morning, very late at night. And there they are walking along the street. Just, again, their omnipresence, their eyes and ears, and they were just walking by me,
Now, what's interesting is, excuse me, what's interesting is that he's sitting there saying, like, I don't know, what kind of message are they trying to send? I don't know if this is an actual message that's being sent right now. I don't know. Right now, I have so many questions revolving around this whole situation because it seems a little bit, it just to me seems a little bit odd. And there's certain reasons why I do find it a tiny bit odd. One thing is for sure, there is a few factors that we need to put in. Just the other day, I mean, this was on the 20th of November. So 8 days ago, a federal judge ruled against Trump's deployment of the National Guard in DC, basically telling Trump that he needs to wrap it up, reel these mother lovers in. Okay? They can't be doing what they doing out here in these streets anymore. Right? This is what a federal judge ruled on Trump. Then days later, this situation happens. Days later, this is the thing. This is what people are mathing together. This is what everyone's equating to this situation. That it seems a little bit odd that one moment this tragedy happens right around the same doggone time that the federal judge or a federal judge is literally trying to put a stop or did put a stop on Trump's deployment of the National Guard in D.C., that he would have to stop because they were saying that this was illegal. That this was illegal, y'all. All right? So a federal judge ruled Thursday on the 20th that President Donald Trump's deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops in D.C. was illegal, concluding he lacks authority to send in troops for the deterrence of crime. So the U.S. District Judge Gia Cobb said that while Trump may be the commander-in-chief of the Guard, his power is constrained by federal laws that limit how those troops can be federalized and deployed, particularly right there in D.C., which is controlled by Congress. Now, this judge turned to President Trump and said, what you're doing here is not right. What you're doing here is illegal. And you need to rally these troops back home. Send them all back home. What you're doing right now is too much. This is what a federal judge said. All right. Whether you agree with it or not, this is what a federal judge said. Okay. Because I know some of y'all will be like, wrong. It's not illegal. He has every right to have a conversation with the federal judge. I'm just spitting facts here. All right. I'm just telling you the timeline. And what's actually happening now, of course, is that Trump would have to basically tell them to go, right? For the National Guard to go back home. Hey, guys, thanks for your time, but it's time for you to go. Or he can appeal that federal judge's decision, which he was in the middle of doing. But then this happens. Two National Guards, okay? One male, one female, brutally attacked in broad daylight, mind you, in the streets of D.C. Obviously, all of us are clutching our pearls. All of us are shook. All of us are surprised about this situation. All of us didn't know everything, right? We didn't know all the information, right? And now we're starting to get more and more information about the assailant and these two, right? And may Sarah Beckstrom, may she rest in peace. And of course, thank you for your service, obviously, right? But what's interesting is that within this whole tragedy, we hear from the man himself, Mr. Department of War himself, Pete Hegseth. And he said this. We're not going to play the whole thing, but he said this right here.
Very productive meetings, but I want to start by saying after those meetings, myself and my team were notified that 2 National Guardsmen have been shot in Washington, D.C., critically wounded. The shooter shot in a cowardly, dastardly act, targeting the best of America, heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C., serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. They were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they love their fellow Americans. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C.
Right there. So you have a federal judge basically saying, nah, bro, what you're doing here is illegal just a few days ago. See, this is what the people are, this is what the streets are saying. This is where you have the tinfoil hat off to the side, just a little bit, just in case. You might have to put it on. But this is what people are speculating, looking at this information and going, hey, this seems a little bit strange. Federal judge says, hail to the nah. You can't be bringing in this National Guard. It's illegal, dagnabbit. Trump, of course, can obviously appeal, right? But then days later, this tragedy happens. This monster does what he does. Does what he does. And now we're hearing Pete Hegseth say, we're not going to back down. Oh, we're not backing down. We're bringing 500 more troops in this town. That's what we're going to do. Dagnabbit. Right? But then, this is all important. I'm just giving you guys bits and pieces because this is all very, very important to understand the breakdown, the breadcrumbs. Follow the breadcrumbs, right? Follow the money, but you're not really following the money here, okay? But nonetheless, you have that whole situation, okay, right? You have that goes down. This tragedy happens right after a federal judge says, nope, take them back, bring them home, send them home. This is illegal. This tragedy happens. Pete Hegseth says, no, we're about to bring even more troops in this mug, right? Seems a little bit interesting, though, don't you think? Then we find out that, let's not forget, this suspect, this assailant that did what he did, okay, is what did work for the CIA. Like I just mentioned before, did work for the CIA, which is absolutely insane. Okay, let's take a look at this. An Afghan national who previously worked with the CIA named as suspect. Ramanullah, Lackenwall. That's the guy. Okay, this guy right here. 29 years old, by the way. That's a horrid 29. That's a horrid 29. But he's 29. 29 years old is the one who opened fire and took the life of one of these soldiers. Another one, like we said, Andrew, okay, Staff Sergeant Andrew, is fighting for his life in a hospital right now as we speak. But nonetheless, that man right there, Ramanullah Lackenwall, he is the one who worked alongside the CIA. And of course, everybody's going, wait, what is going on here? How is this even possible? Right? You got a guy who is working with us, one of the good guys, basically, suddenly go off kilter, just go full tilt to whatever he had in his mind. What actually happened here? There are some factors you can put in here, though. Let's be real. Just because somebody worked with the CIA in the past does not automatically mean that they didn't have some sort of mental health issues that were never acknowledged. That's something that we have to put in consideration, or something may have taken him over the edge, made him flip. God only knows. We don't know that part, but one thing is for sure. The general public is scratching their heads and they're side-eyeing the situation, saying this is quite a perplexing situation, don't you say, dear? Is there foul play afoot outside of those two getting hit the way that they did by this assailant? Could there be something bigger going on? Which, of course, a lot of people are asking. And I don't blame people asking these doggone questions, okay? Because the math just is outside of this. The math ain't mathing outside of it. This guy comes out of nowhere and does this thing. And again, what we heard from that Fox News clip where he's like, is there a bigger message to come out? What's the bigger message? Because if you really think about it, if there was a bigger message outside of this, it would have been a full-on attack in multiple cities all at the same time. Think about 9/11. By the way, that's basically what we're resorting back to. We're back to the whole WMDs, looking for those damn WMDs, and you know, fool me once, shame on you, can't get fooled again situation all over again. Real talk. We're back at 9/11 all over again. The narrative used to be these damn Democrats are the evildoers. They're the damn Terrys. Now we're going back to, oh snap, Muslims are the devil. Ain't that interesting? Like I said, if this was bigger, 9/11 was a big hit. 9/11 was huge, y'all. It wasn't just World Trade, Pentagon. They were also going after the White House. It was a full-on attack, y'all. It wasn't just two, and I'm not knocking, I'm not downsizing the value and the value of the lives of these two that lost their lives. You understand that, right? But it's not like it's not a building. You see what I'm saying? It's not like they lost their lives at the same time something much grandiose was happening at the same damn time. You see what I'm saying? 9/11 was huge. Huge. And if he was screaming, you know, anything, right? The Allah, that kind of stuff. If he was screaming that stuff as he was taking aim, okay. But it's not like it triggered off other things going on at the same time. So if there was something bigger going on, it would have happened that day, that moment. It all happens at the same time. Okay? That's all I'm basically saying. So I feel like this is a one-time incident, one-time moment. But something strange is going on here. Like I said, the timeline just seems a bit odd. Just a little odd. It could be something. It could be absolutely nothing at all. Let's take a look at this. Okay. So West Virginia National Guard member has passed away, which we already know. And another is in critical condition after a gunman, opened fire near the White House the day before Thanksgiving in an attack that has added fuel to Trump's immigration crackdown. Let me just say this too. Could it be that, remember, Trump has been big on trying to crack down on any type of immigration. In fact, he just shut down immigration throughout. In places like Haiti, anybody from Afghanistan, anybody that wants to come in that isn't, let's just say, how do I say that? I don't know. I don't even know the word. But he is shutting down immigration from so many different countries right now because now everybody's a suspect. Interesting, right? And he's been cracking down on immigration since day one, since his first term. He's been doing that. But now he has incentive because of this pew pew situation, which is tragic, which is bad. It's terrible. But I said this on the other show too. What happened to zero tolerance on schools? Assailants that are walking in of all kinds that are opening fire on children. How about all these tragedies that are happening or were happening at Christmas tree lighting events? Why isn't there a crackdown, and why isn't there a no BS approach to those tragedies that are happening on domestic soil right now as we speak? I feel like every other show now is a mass tragedy of some sort, is a reporting of some sort of mass tragedy. We got to stop what we're doing to run over to give you guys that tragic news of a school or a mall or a New Year's Eve event or a holiday event or something of that sort, right? Why isn't there a zero tolerance on that stuff? But when it comes to this, which is so far that we know of, is only one incident. Suddenly we're shutting down all immigration. We ain't bringing nobody in this country, and we're bringing as many National Guard troops as we can in DC because we ain't messing around with this stuff. We've had enough. Seems a little bit weird, right? Just saying. So we already know about U.S. Army specialist Sarah Beckstrom. Okay, may she rest in peace. She was only 20 years old, y'all. All right. She had been in the service for just over 2 years. Of course, she lost her life in the national capital, or the nation's capital. President said in a call to service members on Thanksgiving, he described the young soldier who volunteered to work over the holiday as outstanding in every way. And so the suspect has been identified as Ramanullah Lackenwall, like I said, 29 years old, Afghan national, who officials say came to the U.S. in 2021 under a program implemented by the Biden administration following the U.S. Military withdrawal from Afghanistan. The suspect was also wounded and was taken to the hospital. Lackenwall had previously worked in Afghanistan with the CIA, according to the agency's director, John Ratcliffe. He was granted asylum in April by the Trump administration. So he got the okay by Biden, and then he got the okay in April by Trump as well. I think that's important to know as well, because we've been hearing out here, with all due respect, I know everybody, there's a lot of MAGA supporters out here not trying to attack Trump, okay? I'd be saying the same thing about Biden or anybody else if this situation was under his guise as well. But it's very interesting that he was trying to throw blame solely on Biden, but they also gave him the okay too. Okay? So they granted him asylum in April by the Trump administration. They granted him that again. Okay? Multiple law enforcement officials told CNN. So Trump called the tragedy an act of terror, and in his remarks from his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida, on Wednesday. The president called for a re-examination of every person from Afghanistan who came to the U.S. under President Joe Biden, and criticized what he claimed were millions of unknown, unvetted foreigners admitted to the country under his predecessor. Interesting. So he's saying any Afghan individual that is here, they need to be re-examined all over, right? They need to re-examine the whole situation all over again. Okay. I guess that's what he gonna do, right? So again, So Lachenwall arrived in the U.S. on September 8th, 2021, as part of a program called Operation Allies Welcome, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said on Wednesday. So Lachenwall was granted asylum earlier this year under the Trump administration after applying in 2024. Multiple law enforcement officials confirmed and told this outlet. So in August 2021, Biden launched the Operation Allies Welcome program to protect vulnerable Afghans following the U.S. military withdrawal from Afghanistan and the Taliban's return to power. More than 190,000 Afghans were resettled in the U.S. under both the Operation Allies Welcome and the program that replaced it, known as Enduring Welcome, according to the State Department. Most Afghans who arrived under Operation Allies Welcome, were allowed to enter and remain in the U.S. for 2 years without permanent immigration status. More than 40% of those admitted to the program were eligible for special immigrant visas, so SIVs, because they took great risks to help the U.S. or were related to someone who did, according to the Department of Homeland Security. In a statement to Fox News Wednesday, Radcliffe said the Biden administration justified bringing the alleged monster, this alleged assailant, to the U.S. in September 2021 due to his prior work with the U.S. government, including CIA as a member of a partner force in Kandahar. Although Trump has maintained Lachenwall it was insufficiently vetted by his predecessor, a senior U.S. official told CNN Lachenwall would have had to undergo extensive vetting to work with the CIA. And I think that is a very important piece right here, that he had to go through extensive vetting to make sure he wasn't either crazy or he wasn't working for the other side, that he wasn't trying to be a double agent of some sort, that he went through an extensive vetting process to make sure he was properly suitable to work and be on the side of the CIA. So either he's a really good liar or he, over time, just lost his mind. I don't know. Mental health is a real thing. Look at Kanye. But at the same time, it's a real thing. Lachenwall began working with the CIA around 2011. And at the time, the agency would have conducted vetting through a variety of databases, including the National Counterterrorism Center database, to determine if he had any known ties to terrorists, to other groups. So a decade later, Afghans admitted to the U.S. under Operation Allies Welcome also underwent extensive vetting as well, despite claims to the contrary by Trump and his allies at the time. So here's the thing. I will say this, because, we can wear the tinfoil hat all day long, but we also have to think about this other side too. Could it possibly be that he had mental health issues? Maybe they went through a vetting process, and over time, his mask of senility started to slip. Could it be that? Could he have been fine, 13, 14 years ago, right? 14 years ago at the time, properly vetted. He wasn't part of any type of terrorist groups. He was doing just fine. He was very helpful with the CIA. He did all the things that he needed to do over there for them. That granted him asylum here in America. He stays here, and maybe the things that he saw, the things that he was a part of, may have caused some serious PTSD, some serious mental health issues that caused him to go crazy and do what he did here. That's possible. That is a part. Like, real talk. There's a moment where Trump himself even said during this press conference, I'm going to try to find it when we get a chance, because he was like, "Are you stupid?" to this reporter. But the reporter was asking a totally innocent question. Understandably, they got to ask the questions. That's why they're journalists. And he got mad and he went off on this journalist. And he's like, wait, people just can't go crazy? And he's got a point. People can't just go crazy. We still have to leave that on the table too. Because I know what a lot of people are speculating and why. And I get it. I can see it. The timeline. It seems very interesting, don't you think? Federal judge says no to the National Guard. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. It's illegal. That's what they ruled. Trump was in the middle of appealing. Because as you see, those National Guards weren't going anywhere. They weren't going anywhere. They just swore both Andrew and Sarah that very day, y'all. And then several hours they were attacked. Several hours. Same day they were sworn in to protect and serve as National Guardsmen and work over that weekend. This weekend, I mean. They set foot out on the street to patrol and they were attacked. Weird. But then you also have an Afghan national that also has ties with the CIA, that helped with the CIA back in the day, is actually the assailant in these streets. What happened here? The timeline is very interesting, and I can see why people are getting their Candace Owens on. I can totally see it. I see it myself. I can see it as clear as day. It's simple math when you look at it like this. But you also got to remember, that's the tinfoil hat stuff, right? That's on the table. But then you look at the possible practical side of things. What if something happened? What if he saw some serious tragedies? Or what if he felt like he got screwed over by America? Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. War is ugly. War is tragic. What if there were things that were guaranteed or promised to him and he did some very, very bad things to his own people, let's just say. And he's so deeply traumatized by that situation, it makes him lose his mind. That's possible too. Again, things that he could have seen while overseas, while in Afghanistan, doing things alongside of America, the CIA. That's possible. That's very possible. But like I said, I'm just throwing out all the possibilities, okay? Just all the possibilities here. I'm just putting them all on the table, and I'm not even scratching the surface of all the multitude of other possibilities that there are within these possibilities. But we have to be as fair as possible, right? And think about both sides. Because it could literally be some sort of conspiracy that could literally be real, or it could just be as practical as he lost his mind, he picked up a weapon, and he just ran outside and found two random National Guardsmen, and they were the targets, and that's it. And it's all solely because he is not right in the head, right? So these are all things, I think, that we have to put in consideration. I'm going to be real, because you can't just sit there and go, yep, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. With all that, that's what happened. We don't have proof of that yet, right? We don't have proof of that. There's theories, understandable theories, but hey, anything is mother-loving possible here. So let's leave it all on the table, okay? But let's continue on. So they say a decade later, he was admitted to the U.S. under Operations Allies Welcome. Also underwent, like I said a second ago, extensive vetting, despite claims to the contrary by Trump and his allies at the time. Now, Lackenwall, would have been among those vetted in 2021 before being allowed to re-enter the U.S. as part of the program. So he went through multiple different types of firewalls, for lack of a better term. He was vetted multiple times. Back in 2011, he was vetted for the CIA to make sure he wasn't working for any type of terror groups or anything like that, right? Then he had to be vetted again in 2011, 10 years later, to make sure he was the proper fit to do or be a part of this program to be admitted into America in 2021. They vetted him then too. And then I think they said a third time, if I'm correct. So again, it's like, well, how many times? Like, how did he do it? See what I'm saying? How is he able to slip through the cracks and get through all these firewalls without any issues and without any problems whatsoever? In terms of vetting, nothing came up, the senior U.S. official said. He was clean on all checks. He would have undergone continuous annual vetting, especially in the wake of the failed terror plot disrupted before the election last year in Oklahoma, which involved an Afghan evacuee, an official said. Huh. Don't you think that's interesting? Annual vetting, especially in the wake of a failed terror plot disrupted before the election last year in Oklahoma. Remember that guy? I forgot his name, but there was he flew into America. He was here for a while. I forgot his name. I'm going to have to look that up. But y'all remember that ish? I remember it. It just flashed in my head just now. I'm like, damn, that dude, remember? There was a whole plan of, taking him out. And there was ties to Afghanistan. Nobody remember this? This is insane. Then, in order to process his asylum claim, immigration officials with the Trump administration would have examined Lackenwall's background earlier this year. The vetting of people overseas by U.S. intelligence agencies is different than what domestic agencies are expected to do once people arrive and are seeking asylum, a second official noted. So that he went through, like I said, multiple firewalls before he was accepted to step foot in America. And then while he was in America, he was still getting examined. He was still getting vetted. He was still being cross-checked and double asked the same damn questions over and over again. And I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works. Like that whole process. Are they going like, okay, Ramen, could we just call you Ramen? Yeah. Okay, so Ramen, you have any, they just have a little checklist, you know what I mean? So you have any ties to any terror groups? Right? You have any connections to any terror groups? And he's like, no, sir. Okay. Finish this phrase for me, okay, right now. Bye, Miss American Pie. Yeah. Good job. Okay. And then what's more American? Apple pie or pizza? Apple pie? Exactly. Thank you so much. And then they come back 5 months later. Bye, just randomly. Bye. What is it? Finish it for me. Miss American Pie? Yes. Good job. Just no Terry groups though, right? Right, Ramen? You sure, Ramen? No, Terry. No, Terry. No. Okay. Just checking. All right. And they leave 6 months later. No Terry groups? How you doing? Yeah, happy holidays. Yeah. If you celebrate that, because that's American. Do you celebrate it? Yes, we do Christmas all day. Right? How do they make sure? How are they vetting this person to make sure, absolutely with 110% every year, making sure that there's no ties to a person like Ramanula and Terry groups? How are they doing that? Annual vetting, guys. Annual vetting. Now, obviously, I'm not, I'm asking a question, and I'm sure somebody out there has the answer. I don't. But I'd like to know, because that's a very, like when they say, we vet everything. We do everything we can. We do this, that, and the third. Cool. All right. So what's different the second time, third time, fourth time, and fifth time? Or is it just the same process? Like I said, just asking questions I think that we all would like to have answered. Okay. So small, of course, we already know about Sarah Beckstrom, okay, 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom. She lost her life, okay? And of course, Andrew is actually fighting for his life right now as we speak. Andrew Wolf is still fighting for his life right now. And I just think it's very interesting that this particular individual, Ramanula, was out here working for the CIA. And of course, some people are wanting to know, what is this group that he was working for? Like they say that, of course, you know, he suffered mental health problems from fighting for CIA-backed Zero Unit. And some of us are wondering, what the hell CIA's Zero Unit? Now, according to the Google AI, this is what they're saying. They say the term CIA Zero Units refers to secretive Afghan paramilitary forces that were trained, funded, equipped, and overseen by the CIA during the war in Afghanistan. They were known by number designations such as 01, 02, 03, etc. Okay, so the Kandahar Strike Force, or KSF, was the 03 unit. Hence the Zero Unit's name. So again, could it be, according to the to New York Post, could it be a situation where they suffered mental health issues because they saw really bad things? They experienced war, and that's why they've lost their mind? It could be. But you'd think that if he was being vetted, properly vetted, that they would know that this man has some sort of mental health issues. Wouldn't they? Now, I get it. There's a lot of people out here hiding in straight up plain sight with mental health issues. And maybe they can reel it in. You know, the ones that have not been diagnosed properly, or they're not medicated or anything of that sort. There are people out there that could really just rein it in, zip it up, and get very straight to the point, right? When they're being asked questions and when they're being cross-examined. Maybe that's the situation, but they say that he was annually getting vetted. They didn't catch any of this at all? If it is just straight up mental health issues? Very interesting. So the suspected Afghan Terry, accused of taking down those two National Guards, just blocks from the White House, struggled for years with the violence he saw as part of a notorious CIA-backed paramilitary group in his home country, according to a longtime friend. When he saw blood, bodies, and the wounded, he could not tolerate it. This is what a childhood friend of Ramanula said. Now, it put a lot of pressure on his mind, the friend said, and this is what they told the New York Times. So Lachenwal Ramanula was part of an elite group of Afghan fighters known as the Zero Units, or alternatively, death squads, which battled the Taliban alongside U.S. forces for over a decade. So if he was out there fighting alongside of America and taking out his own people, if you really think about it, I can see it having some sort of effect on somebody's brain. Think about it, right? If this is 110% true, this is what they're reporting. We've already heard from the higher ups that he indeed was working in tandem with the CIA. This is not a fugazi. This is not fake news. It is the real deal Holyfield. Insane. The father had 5 settled in Bellingham, Washington, after he fled the Afghanistan following the Biden administration's disastrous 2021 pullout. Yeah, that was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. It was very, very bad. Lackenwall's role within the zero units remains unclear, but he reportedly joined as a security guard in 2012 when he would have been about 16 years old. That's insane too. One of his cousins told the Associated Press. He remained in the group for nearly 10 years and was reportedly promoted to a team leader and a GPS specialist along the way, and only left the group in 2021 as U.S. forces haphazardly pulled out of the country. But whatever he did in that time reportedly exacted a heavy toll. He would tell me and our friends that our military operations were very tough. Their job was very difficult, and they were under a lot of pressure. This is what the childhood friend told the Times. Those pressures led to spiraling mental health. This is what the friend said, with Lackenwall apparently trying to cope by using substances like that Mary Jane. Lackenwall was in such a state towards the end of his time with his 0 unit in 2021 that he got married to his second wife and divorced her within days. It's crazy. He sounds more American than ever. Moving on. Though 0 units were part of the Afghans' government intelligence agency, they were trained, recruited, equipped, and even paid by the CIA and U.S. Special Operations Forces. That meant they were fighting along the best of the best. They were trained to be deadly effective in covert operations and high-stake nighttime raids across Afghanistan's remote countryside. This is insane. This seems like a book. This feels like a Tom Clancy book, y'all. I'm being real. This seems like a Tom Clancy freaking like spy thriller, espionage type thing. But real talk, this guy was working with some of the best. Some of the mother-loving best. But the group also gained a reputation for extreme violence, with stories of taking out families, let's just say that. Indiscriminate civilian unalivings following in their wake. Taking out families, putting them through hell, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? And just taking out civilians. If this is true, wouldn't that play a toll on your mental health? They are illustrative of a larger pattern of serious laws of war violations, some amounting to war crimes that extends to all provinces in Afghanistan, where these paramilitary forces operate with impunity. That is insane. This is what a Human Rights Watch wrote in a 2019 report talking about these groups. They were above the law. It almost sounds like they were just a bunch of Judge Dreads. Think about that. And this is insane. Like I said, if this is true, hamburger. This is like a mother-loving Tom Clancy book. In one alleged incident, 5 members of a single family were taken out at once. In another, one 0 unit was accused of taking the lives of over 50 civilians across a series of raids. Why? If that's true, that's insane. That's insane. Such stories earned the 0 units a nickname, death squads. That's what they were called. With Human Rights Watch alleging they were behind numerous extrajudicial executions, and enforced disappearances. Despite Lachenwall's reported breakdown, he relocated to the U.S. under former President Joe Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, which relocated nearly 80,000 Afghans to the U.S. About 10,000 of them had been members of the Zero units. See now, okay, hold on. See now, here it is. Let me just say this. All right, pause for a second. Let's time out. Now that when we're hearing all this information, right, it makes a little bit more sense on why he's like, we need to vet everyone again. We need to go through all of the Afghan immigrants that we have, especially those that were members of the Zero units, and we need to properly vet them again all over again. Do some deep diving, and let's make sure that every single last person in here is all about America. Think about that for a second. Put that in your pipe and smoke on it for a minute. Just think about that for a second. No conspiracy theories, no going, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, not going flying off this planet with wild conspiracy theories. Let's just talk about these facts here really quick. You got a guy like Ramanullah Lachenwall, that was not only a viable member of these Zero units, but he also learned the way of the samurai. Think about that for a second. He was running alongside other soldiers that were, as they say, as they reported in multiple sources, from Associated Press to New York Times to, New York Post, but they all basically said that these mother lovers were properly vetted and they knew their ish, and they were running alongside some of the best of the best. And also, let me point this out too. Ramanullah was only 16 when he started. Think about that too. 16 years old. And he's out there training, learning, getting all the tactical skills. 16 years old, y'all. And then while he's doing these things, he's also taking his own people out. I'm sorry, but you got to think about that too. Imagine if Afghanistan was America and you're 16 years old, and for years, 10 years, you're running around taking out other Americans. You know that these are other Americans. These are your people. You're just taking them out. You're taking out families. You're relocating or making people get disappeared out here in these streets. Your own people at the age of 16, going on to whenever for 10 years till he was about 26 years old. Like I said, if these claims are absolutely true, that's absolutely insane. But then, how about this? Think about this too. He's not the only one, though, baby. He's not the only one out there. He's not the only one learning about all this stuff. He's not the only one running alongside other best of the best, learning the way of the samurai, getting tactical, learning our intelligence, learning how we move and work out here in these streets. Now, what we just saw with him, who's to say that there's another person like him in America that's sitting there acting, being all nice, waiting, just being kind, smiling and all that. But he's also a double agent. I know that sounds insane. Maybe it's a triple agent if you really think about it. But that's insane though, right? That's insane. And that's very possible. Look at this ish. Just look at that timeline. You're learning how to get used to erasing people, straight up deleting people, families, mass amounts of people. You're learning how to take people's lives without any issues. This country is flooding millions of dollars in training into you. Then you get a chance and opportunity to seek asylum here. because of what you did, because of what you contributed for the American people. You get to live here in a nice, cushy, I'm assuming, cushy place with your family and whatever. So if there are 10,000 other zero units, members, 10,000 other members of zero units out here in America, mostly settled in the Seattle area, cross-check that again. That's all I'm saying. Cross-check that again. All the 10,000. I'm sorry. They all need to be looked at again. Because like I said, Lackenwall could be absolutely traumatized for what he has done to his own countrymen, to the point where he was seeking some sort of retaliation, trying to fulfill some sort of vendetta. This could have just been vengeance for what he endured and what he was a part of for 10 years. Think about that. Like I said, all of it is possible. All of this. But isn't that this would be insane, dude. Okay. That's insane. Like I said, like a Tom Clancy novel. But we don't have Harrison Ford. Okay? No Harrison Ford. Pretty insane. Let's continue. So 10,000 of other, so they have 80,000 Afghans in the U.S. right now as we speak. They have 10,000 of them that were members of these zero units. So in other words, death squads. They called them death squads, mang. Okay? They didn't call them the Lollipop Guild. They called them death squads, mang. Serious. So they had 10,000 of them that are mostly settled in Seattle, in the Seattle area, like Lackenwall did. And from what we understand, Lackenwall apparently jumped in his ride and he drove cross country. He didn't jump into a plane. He didn't do any of that stuff. He didn't take a train. All right. No, he wasn't sitting next to the likes of John Candy and Steve Martin. Okay. All right. He took an automobile. He took a vehicle, as Tyler Robinson would say, and drove cross country to do what he did. Wild. In Bellingham, he lived with his wife, who was often seen in a hijab, and his kids in a $2,000 a month apartment where neighbors said he and his family were quiet. Isn't that the story we hear a lot? They were just so quiet, so nice, but they just kept to themselves. One neighbor told the Post that he played Call of Duty in his family's sparsely furnished apartment, which had no beds, but only couch cushions for sleeping. He drove across the country in his Hyundai sedan sometime earlier this week. In Washington, D.C. on Wednesday afternoon, he allegedly ambushed and he took or tried to take out both, but he so far has only taken the life of one National Guard troop while the other one is still in the hospital fighting for his life. We already know about that. Now, we just heard, and this is true too, because when they said this, I was like, there's no way that they both survived. There's no way. Because they said one of the Guard troops, okay, was actually hit in the dome. All right. And then, of course, both were left gravely in critical condition. But again, one of them got hit in the head. I was like, there's no way that person survived. I hate to say it like that, but when, once it's a headshot, I'm like, nah, there's no way. All right. Despite zero units gaining a reputation for radicalizing civilians with its tactics, its own ranks were notably free of internal dissent, with not a single unit having an Afghan member turn on U.S. troops during the war. So none of them turned on any other U.S. troop at all. They worked with them peacefully. They went to war together. And that's it. They never turned and try to retaliate or do anything in Afghanistan. None of these people that decided to, go against their own people, for lack of a better term, ever turned a weapon onto U.S. troops during their time. That has been attributed to a heavy vetting process, which barred anybody from joining unless their loyalty was vouched by a family member or close friend already in the inside. Lackenwall's brother was reportedly a commander of the same Zero unit he joined when he was apparently just a 16-year-old kid. The CIA has vehemently denied the stories of the Zero unit's violence, insisting they are little more than Taliban propaganda. So, this is a very, very interesting piece, especially when it comes to talking about how this guy, Ramanullah Lackenwall, was connected to the CIA and was working alongside America. And the claims that they're saying about what these Zero units did, I mean, these guys were, like I said, it sounds like they were freaking Rambo. They were out here just taking people out. Savagery, straight up savagery. And I'm going to tell you this too. Haven't we heard stories about soldiers slipping, having severe mental health issues? Marines, active or not active Marines, slipping, losing their minds, driving cars into churches, setting them on fire and opening fire on innocent worshipers in a church. Within that same week, a guy on a river, I think it was like in North Carolina, basically driving his boat on a river right by an area where there was a bunch of bars and restaurants, opened fire from his boat into an actual restaurant, taking people out there too. And that's just two of them right there. And that was within the same week, baby. We've heard those stories, and that's American. That's American soldiers, y'all. American. Who's to say that there's other people from other countries that may have worked alongside Americans, became allies of American soldiers that have relocated here in America that aren't dealing with some sort or some semblance of mental health or PTSD. Think about that. That is very, very possible. So when it comes to this situation with him, with Ramanullah, maybe that's the same situation. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But this is some very, very interesting stuff. We're going to go over to News Nation because they were talking about this as well. What could have made him flip, right? What could have made him turn, right? I'd like to know that too. Let's take a listen to this.
Tracy Walder, News Nation national security contributor and a former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Thank you so much for being with us here on Thanksgiving. Tracy, before we get into talking about the suspect, you say that there had been a threat to law enforcement back in September. What can you tell us about that?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jessica. Yes, back in September, there was a threat from the NCTC, which we actually have been talking about quite a bit, that they had just seen a heightened chatter, I guess is what we typically call it at the CIA, regarding threats to law enforcement and to the military. Now, I want to be clear. It is obviously general, right? We don't get threats in terms of terrorists, picking up the phone and saying, hey, we're going to attack on this day and this time. But clearly they had heard enough of terrorist groups, namely Al-Qaeda and ISIS, that's who they mentioned in these reports, that were already inside the United States and were going to launch lone wolf, which is exactly what this was, style of attacks against military and law enforcement.
Okay, the suspect we know is in custody, but we still don't have a motive. We do know that he came to this country as part of a program following the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. What does this tell us about him and why he was here in the first place?
So I actually worked with a lot of Afghan nationals when I lived and worked in Afghanistan as a CIA officer. This was exceptionally common, to be completely honest. We used them to help us with human intelligence. We used them to help us with administrative tasks. It was very, very common. And so it sounds to me that this was an individual that had given a lot of help, if you will, to the U.S. government. But I think the question is what happened between that time frame of 2011 and 2021? Did he become radicalized then and that was missed, which actually can definitely happen in those vetting checks? Or did he come to the United States and become radicalized here?
That is very possible. Like, again, there's so many different possibilities here. Okay, a lot. It could be at the end of the day, it could be a situation of two things can be true at the same time. Like, literally, it could literally be like two things could be true at the same time. What if he was mentally losing his mind? Because, okay, just to feed into that conspiracy theory that this is all having to do with the administration, and the administration just, this is a false flag, and they are using this so that they can augment the presence of National Guard throughout the country. Let's just entertain that for a second, because that's clearly what a lot of people are speculating right now as we speak. Two things could be true at the same time. What if it's a situation where they knew that he was not mentally well, but they're like, we're going to use you. We're going to use you. Right? That he, while working with the CIA, while being a part of these zero units, that he saw enough stuff to cause some serious trauma in his mind, right? Serious mental trauma, right? To the point where he's overwrought with guilt, overwrought with anger, or the Americans said that gave him so many empty promises, all right? Just gave him nothing but promises. And they never gave him what he asked for. He got mad. But then maybe they said, hey, we see what we could use you for. You're a soldier, right? And then they activated him. And now it's like, oh, he's just some crazy guy and he's screaming, Allahu Akbar, or whatever the hell they are claiming that he said as he's pulling the trigger. And now it's a whole, we got to focus on these damn Muslims. Protect America. We're back to 9/11 again. So again, it could very well be two things could be true at the same time, or they could be completely separate, right? It could be either one. But the way that she's saying, oh yeah, they did a lot of administration, they did a lot of person-to-person interaction. You mean to tell me as he's out there and he's working alongside other soldiers that are out there that are deployed in Afghanistan, you mean to tell me he didn't see anything so bad that he was like, that was not right, but he has no choice but to stand there and watch what's being done? I'm just saying. Like I said, two things could be true at the same time, or it could be either one, right? But like I said, we hear a lot of stories about soldiers and their mental health issues, and we've seen quite a bit of those soldiers go out and do some unthinkable things out here on American soil against their own American people. So again, like I said, two things could be true at the same time, or they could be either one.
That's what I would be interested in trying to find out.
Okay, so you mentioned this group. Is this a paramilitary group? Would the U.S. have information on him as being part of that CIA-backed group?
I have to be completely honest, Jessica, I don't know the answer to that question. I worked with local Afghans in many different capacities, obviously out in the field. It sounds to me in 2011, he would have been 15. So it's hard to know exactly what he was doing. However, in terms of gathering intelligence, Afghanistan is very clannish, familial type of place. We don't gather intelligence the same way. And so a lot of times locals are very helpful in that, but I truly don't know exactly what his position was.
Got it. And Tracy, FBI Director Patel claimed that zero vetting had been done before bringing him here to the U.S. What happens now to determine whether there is broader coordination or to prevent something like this from potentially happening in the future?
Hold on. I'm going to let her finish. I'm going to let her answer that question. But I do want to point out that Kash Patel apparently said that there was no vetting. There was no vetting process when he was brought over. Yet we just heard in that report that we just read that they were doing annual vetting. They would vet annually. And that he was vetted again even in 2021, right? And then he was vetted from starting from 2021 up until now. He was vetted every year. So what is it then, man? Is that true? Was he not vetted? He was just scooped up and brought in, before before they just said, F it, come here. You've served our country, so come on with us. Or did they actually vet him before they brought him to America? See, this is the problem because, like I said, I don't want to bash Kash Patel. I'm not trying to bash the man, but this is the problem that I see with the head and the director of the FBI. He does not give us full on facts. He says certain things to make certain things sound good. It's hard to take him 110% for what he is saying because he says one thing and then we find out something else later. That is the issue I have. There's a piece I'm going to show you guys in a second, and I'm like, what? And it has to do with Kash Patel. And I'm like, what is it? Are you here? Is that accurate or is it not accurate? Right? We've been side-eyeing the administration for a minute now since the Epstein files and all that stuff. Okay, all of us, whether you are MAGA hard or anti-MAGA, or even in between, just sitting there going, I'm just here to see the lights. You know what I mean? I have no opinion. I just like to see the stars and see all the crazy fireworks that go on during the day. It's fun. I just want to see the colors. It doesn't matter what side you're on. At the end of the day, you look at the information, you start scratching your head going like, wait a second, what's the truth here? Are they lying or are they telling the truth? So when he says, yeah, he wasn't even properly vetted before he came here, are you sure about that? Because we're still hearing that they were properly vetted way before and then vetted over and over again yearly when they got here. Again, it's hard when they try to do everything they can to point blame at the Biden administration. I said it. It's hard to take them seriously when all they do is consistently go, this wouldn't have happened if I was president. Damn, Biden shouldn't have been president. It should have been me, right? And now while we're here, they're like, oh, by the way, during the administration that Biden was heading, they didn't properly vet, so it's all their fault. It's hard to take them seriously, y'all. Instantly, I'm like, is that 110% though? Is that for real or no? I mean, according to reports that we're reading here, they're saying that they were vetted yearly. Vetted yearly. Annually vetted. That means yearly. Now, if there's something else that's saying it, all right. But still, no matter what, now that we are here, okay, now that we are under this administration as well, okay, we can put all the blame on Biden as well. That's fine. But now that we have the Trump administration, are they properly vetting these people as well? Something to ask. Because it's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda, and you could be pointing at the past. But we're talking about right now. This attack did not happen under Biden administration's watch. This is happening right under Trump's administration watch. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we got to look at the facts, and the facts is this. So again, it doesn't matter whether they were properly vetting them now, then they should be properly vetting them now. And if they were properly vetting him by now, right now, then he should have been left, right? He should have been deported. He should have been kicked out of this country, toot sweet, with the quickness, right? So again, it's a lot of, but Biden, and I'm like, but right now, we're talking about present day right now. If you have the proper vetting process, find those mother lovers, find those moles, find those double agents, find those bad guys, and get them to get the stepping out this damn country and call it a damn day. Biden doesn't even remember what he did over the past 4 years. That's how badly his dementia is. He gone, guys. It's done. We're here. It's Trump administration. What is he going to do to stop the situation from happening? Did they start annually vetting this guy when the administration took over? That's the important part. And that's what I want to see, if there's any information on that. And it sounds like maybe they were and maybe they weren't. Don't know. But this guy went out there and he did what he did. Why? Why did he do it? Why? So let's continue.
Yeah, so there will be a damage assessment that will be done, very similar to what happened. Obviously, it's not on the same scale in the wake of 9/11, where we saw that there was obviously a massive communication breakdown between the FBI and the CIA. So I think what will happen is, I do respectfully disagree in that he was definitely at least vetted by the CIA. There's no question, because I would actually get those vetting reports out in the field. It's just the question of that 2021. And so I think they are going to have to look at coordinated communication and whether or not that happened.
I mean, here's the thing. Was he properly vetted before he came in? Was he properly vetted even after he came in? When there's reports saying that that they were doing annual vetting, then is that true or is that not the truth? I think that's the one thing, right? That's the one thing that we all want to know. Is that 110% true or not, right? We are talking to a former CIA agent here, right? Well, we can't even get a straight answer from in this situation as well. So again, it's like, what is going on, right?
Okay, that makes sense. So Lackenwall, we keep saying, traveled across the country from Washington State to Washington, D.C. to carry out this attack. So this certainly speaks to some premeditation, does it not?
Damn right.
Absolutely. To me, this is somewhat similar. I said this earlier today to what we saw on the January 1st attack in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. That individual, I know, didn't drive obviously as far, but he had driven from Houston to New Orleans, obviously speaking to the premeditation. And so to me, the fact that this was so highly premeditated, that actually tells me someone somewhere on some chat room knew what this individual was doing.
Okay, so let me ask you about this. The suspect used a very powerful handgun that is really not easy to get a hold of.
Hold on, we're gonna get to the weapon here in a second, but you heard that, right? Haven't we heard that before? Think about the Tyler Robinson case. Yes, I know he's not Afghanistan, but at the same time, remember we've heard that before. Oh, there's got to be a way. We definitely can tell that he did not operate alone. That's what they're talking about with this guy. They're saying we believe he did not operate alone. That somebody else knew at least that what he was doing, that these moves were actually happening, so on and so forth, right? Now, again, he could very well have done this all by his lonesome. Just like the whole Tyler Robinson situation, right? He could have done this all by his lonesome. He was just in his fee-fees, or he just wanted to make his furry trans boyfriend, Lavelle, happy and go, look what I done did. Charlie Kirk, he gone now, right? That's possible. That's still on the table too. But you mean to tell me he didn't talk to nobody about nothing? You got people out here in these internet streets saying, get ready for September 9th or September 10th is about to go down. When you see it, you'll know. That kind of thing. You mean to tell me he didn't operate and tell other people what was going on? Same thing with this situation. He drives multiple hours, several hours across country in his ride, in his Hyundai, to go and do what he did. No one knew. No one knew about this? Or are we going to see text messages that look like they were made out of ChatGPT saying, oh, I can't believe that I did that thing. And God forbid I walked down that particular street and did what I did, because when I did that, that's why I did what I did. You know what I'm saying? Very Tyler Robinson-y type of text messages, right? My love. Again, it's just, there's no way. And I believe with this situation too, with Ramanullah, there's no way that he operated alone. There's no way.
Does anything stand out to you about the weapon that he chose to use in this attack?
I actually think, strangely, that speaks more to premeditation as well. I believe, just as someone who's lived in DC myself, if he was walking down the streets of DC with some type of long gun or a rifle, someone would notice. Just because, in my opinion, DC is a very hyper-aware city, especially being only 1,000 feet from the White House. Someone's going to know. A handgun, in and of itself, is obviously very, very concealable. So, to me, I think he actually put a lot of thought, in my opinion, into the weapon that he was using.
Okay, and we also have reported that the suspect was reportedly in the country illegally after his permission recently expired. Do we have any idea whether he'd been flagged?
It's hard to say. I would have thought so, just given President Trump's immigration pushes and Homeland Security. I would have thought that he would have been flagged for overstaying his visa. But again, there is only so much that can be done in terms of looking at individuals that are here illegally. He may just have been someone that slipped through the cracks, or they hadn't gotten to yet.
Okay, right now on your screen, it says 200,000 Afghan refugees here in America. Immigration Services, Tracy, say that it paused immigration applications from all Afghan nationals. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's hard, because here's the thing. I worked with a lot of them in Afghanistan, and my heart broke for a lot of them. When we pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021, I was actually deeply concerned about what was going to happen to some of them and to some of their families as well. There's no question they and their families would have been killed. And I do feel that, in a way, we do owe it to some of them to help them maintain some degree of safety after really paying the ultimate price for working with us. I do think that right now, at this point in time, sort of pausing that immigration is the right thing to do until we can develop a better vetting process.
I agree with that. I do. When you start to understand and start to hear everything, it goes, okay, that is starting to make sense. That makes sense now, right? When you get all the pieces of information, because I know some people, their gut reaction shooting from the hip is, oh, how dare you do that, shutting it all down. And in my mind, I'm like, well, wait a second. If there are, and I'm not sitting here saying that all Afghan nationals that are here, all Afghan immigrants that are here are all bad people. I'm not saying that at all. But when you do have somebody that worked with the likes of CIA or zero units, and that there are other ones that are out here living in America as well, it does make you a little concerned. Like, maybe they need to properly vet those individuals. But what's interesting is Trump is now starting to expand that out to other countries as well. It's not just him saying, we're going to shut it down for anybody from Afghanistan for right now, because we need to make sure that the people that are coming in are properly vetted, because this could be another situation happening all over again, right? He's not doing that. Now he's putting it out on Haiti too now as well. He's putting it out on Haiti. He's putting it out on other places where it's like, well, they're not pulling the trigger out here. They're not part of some CIA, group called Zero Units. These are just people who are just trying to come to America and live their lives. Now, we've had quite a history with Afghanistan, have we not? Quite a history. I think it would be very important, and I think it would be the smart thing to do, which is look at the people that are coming in and making sure, especially those who do work or had some sort of experience with the CIA or any type of military, U.S. military group of any kind, they definitely need to be properly vetted for sure before we get more terror like this happening in our streets. But does that mean bring in more National Guards into DC? No, it doesn't. In fact, what Pete Hegseth said in the beginning, where he's like, we're not backing down. We're not going to back down. Well, first off, what were they trying to back down? What this guy did if we have our information correct and we start to hear more information, this attack was not because the National Guard was in D.C. and he has a big problem with it. Man, he has to go and do this terror attack. No. His attack was something else. So Pete Hegseth saying, and I understand he's shooting from the hip too, and he doesn't have all the information either. But those two that lost their life, I don't think had anything to do with them, with being a problem, or like, I don't think them being, patrolling the streets was a problem for this assailant. That's what I truly think. I think he attacked them because he wanted to make some sort of point. That's it. I don't think it was a situation where he's like, I can't stand that there's the National Guard in D.C., so I'm going to drive all the way out there and cause havoc because they're the National Guard, and I have a problem with that. I'm going to shake my fist at the situation. No, I don't think that. I think he did what he did because he had something else that he wanted to put out there. Some personal vendetta. You see what I'm saying? It was another bee in his own bonnet that was bothering him. And I do not think it has anything to do with them having the National Guard deployed in D.C. And whenever they figure out what the heck that is, hopefully they let the rest of the world know about that too. But I don't think it has any reason, there's any reason for them to bring 500 more troops into mother-loving D.C. I really don't. It's not going to change anything. It's not. It's not going to change anything. Real talk. Something is very interesting about this, and I told you guys I was going to talk about this. This happened the other day. We watched the press conference, but there's something about this that I just got to talk to you guys about, and it's driving me nuts. Cash Patel. I know we're talking about cash. All right, not the bills that fold in your pocket and fold in your wallet. Okay, not them greenbacks. Okay, not them dead presidents. I'm talking about cash, mother-loving Patel. Now, here's the thing. His job is already on the chopping block. All right. I want to make that abundantly clear. And I think we all know why. He's been caught slipping a lot. There's something that happened here when he's addressing the public in this press conference that he says, and then somebody else corrects him immediately after. And I just want us to hear what he had to say, because again, this is the biggest problem that I have with the world that we're living in right now, with the leadership that we have right now. We have a problem with not saying the correct stuff right out the gate. This is the problem. Let's take a listen real quick. It won't be a long conversation, but I just want to show you guys. I just want to show you guys this piece. All right.
That happened today at approximately 2:15 local time in Washington, D.C., where two of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice. Since this is an assault.
Hold on. I want you guys to hear that part one more time. That part I just stopped on, very important. I'm going to play one more time for you guys to hear. Prick up your ears. Listen.
This act of violence, they were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice.
You heard that right? I want you to make sure, okay? You heard that. Let me skip ahead a little bit. After he says his stuff, we get straight up. It's literally immediately after he gets done talking. I'm going to show you that so you see it. He's just got done talking. He walks away, and then Chief of Police steps forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Carroll. I'm the Executive Assistant Chief here at the Metropolitan Police Department.
Hear what he got to say.
At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody.
You heard that, right? Hold on. Hold on, baby. Hear that last part. Hold on.
The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody.
You heard that, right? You heard that, right? Hold on. Hold on. Hopefully I can find it again. Hopefully I can get lucky and find that spot again. Listen to what he said.
To bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice.
You heard that, right? You see what you heard that, right? Ladies and germs, you heard that, right? No, it's okay. It's okay. Hold on. It's okay. It's okay. Hold on. I'm going to play that one more time. Oh, it's more than just that, sweethearts. It's more than just that. Hold on. Hear what he says.
Agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice.
Heard that, right? Let me go over to the deputy executive chief. Just hear what he says one more again. He said, we're going to do everything we can to get these perpetrators. So in other words, he's saying out loud that the assailant is still out there, at large. He's still out here running around, kicking rocks in these wilderness streets. He is still at large at that moment. We're going to make sure we get everybody. We're going to make sure we apprehend all the assailants and all the bad guys, right? He didn't say anything about detaining anybody. But then we get over here and he says what?
17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody.
You just heard that, right? By the way, what's this? What time is this? Okay, so within 2 minutes, because around 27 seconds in this video is when Cash Patel says, we're going to go and do everything we can to get these perpetrators, to take them down. Then the deputy executive chief comes in and says, the assailant opened fire, he was subdued, and he was detained. Basically saying that perpetrator that Cash Patel said was basically still out here, out on the lam at large, was actually detained. So doesn't that make Cash Patel look like Boo Boo the Fool? Or no? After I reran it, because I was like, I need to hear this again. I need to hear this press conference one more again. And I heard that and I was like, wait a second. He just jacked up big time here. He opened everything up being like, this is what's going on. Look at all these people behind us. Rhetoric. The things that he, very much like, I'm saying this by rote because this is what I say all the time. I'm going to look around, looking at everybody like a terrified squirrel getting caught in the light. Okay. Looking at everybody. Okay. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to say. We're going to get this individual. We're going to get these perpetrators. He said plural, perpetrators. And then deputy executive chief said, oh, no. Oh, baby, no. I'm about to give you guys the real honest information. Yeah, that guy's been detained. Yeah, he's been subdued. He was hit. Yeah. And then he got detained. He's arrested. We had to rip him down to his skivvies. And he's been arrested. Yeah. Just so you know. That's just what happened with Cash Patel. But if you notice, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get at him like this. I'm really not. I'd rather him be out here winning. You know what I'm saying? I want Cash to be winning. Your name is Cash. I want you winning, Cash. But no, this is not how you do it, baby. Remember what happened with Charlie Kirk? Remember when he said, we got the assailant? And they're like, no, we don't. And he's like, oh, snap. Well, we got another one. No, we don't. Oh, snap. We don't? We don't? For real? For real? Okay. Remember all that crap? And he said, oh, thank you so much for the hard work. Such and such and this, that, and the third did and blah, blah, blah. We got the guy. Actually, if the rumors aren't true and what they said in the very beginning is true, this mother lover walked in and turned himself in. I'm talking about Tyler Robinson. If he really did turn himself in, 5-0 didn't do nothing. And I'm not trying to knock 5-0. They did what they needed to do, right? And without them cooperating with the public, and if that storyline is actually true, if and only if that storyline is actually true, that would mean the public, in cooperation with the police, were able to apprehend this individual. But he wasn't apprehended. He walked in. And then he turned himself in. If those stories are true, FBI didn't do anything. Local law enforcement only sent out more photos. And then Tyler's mama was like, oh my gosh, that looks just like Tyler. Tyler? Is that you? Ma, it's not me, Ma. It looks exactly like you. I know my son when I see him, even all, with that weird digital blur. I know that's my son, right? He looked like a Boo Boo the Fool at that time. Now he looking like Boo Boo the Fool again. That's all I'm trying to say. Cash Patel looking like a damn fool all over again. Why? Why did he have to say what he said? Now it makes sense why he did this later on.
Very preliminary in the investigation, so we're looking to all aspects.
It's like, hang on. The reason that this suspect is in custody is because.
Now it makes sense. This is the reason why. This is the reason why I'm like, this feels so odd. This feels so odd, doesn't it? At first, he's like, now it makes sense. At first, I was like, oh, he's scared about losing his job. He is really scared about losing his job. That's for real, for real. But you saw how he was trying to scoop up the fumble as quickly as he could. Notice what he just said.
The reason that this suspect is in custody is because of the bravery of the men and women of the National Guard.
And it's all BS that's coming out of his mother-loving mouth. Oh, my word. Ain't that about a shut your mouth? Ain't that interesting? He looks like a mother-loving fool. He opened this whole thing, this whole presser going, basically the assailant or possible assailants are out there in these streets, and we will apprehend them as soon as possible because we're the FBI, we are law enforcement, and we don't play. And then the other guy goes, hi, I'm sorry. I know I sound like this, and I'm so tall. I'm so much taller than you, Cash, but here it is. Just so you know, we got the guy. Okay. You have any questions? Mm-hmm. And they start getting the questions out, right? And then as soon as he hears and it comprehends in his brain, oh, I just dropped the ball. Oh, snap. Oh, this is bad. Oh, excuse me. This is the reason why. As you can see. Chest out. Say it with your chest, Cash. This is the reason why we were able to apprehend this mother lover because of these amazing people behind us. The ATF, the CIA, the FBI, and local PD were able to come together and do what we did. And if it wasn't for us, we would still be up here scratching our heads like I was in the very beginning. But you don't remember that anymore because that was the past. Yes. That really just happened, y'all. That just happened. And that's why he jumped up so abruptly like that. This is the reason why, because of our amazing law enforcement and FBI working together, we were able to apprehend this mother lover because of these amazing people behind us. The ATF, the CIA, the FBI, and local PD were able to come together and do what we did. And if it wasn't for us, we would still be up here scratching our heads like I was in the very beginning. But you don't remember that anymore because that was the past. Yes. That really just happened, y'all. If it wasn't for all of us, we would not be where we at right now, which is that guy has been detained, right? Yep. Yep. Has been detained. Absolutely. He looks like a fool now. If you go back and just rewind, go through all that stuff again, you're going to see it for yourself. This is the reason why he jumped so fast on that mic as soon as they gave out the information, because he wanted people to forget what he just did. He messed it up again. And this time, it wasn't some sort of tweet that he could just delete. This was in a press conference in front of the whole world in Washington, D.C. You understand this, guys? This is bad. This is very, very bad. How would he not know the information before he got on that mother freaking live mic? Because now people are going to be sitting here, which is unfortunate, because this is the situation, this is the world that we live in, right? Now everybody's going to be sitting there going, oh, wait, is there more people involved? Did we just catch him in a straight up bold-faced cover-up? Is he trying to cover this whole situation up in real time, live, right in front of us? Or did he just make a really dumb mistake? I hope it's a dumbass mistake and not some live cover-up right then and there. I really hope. But don't you notice that? Don't you find that a little bit interesting? We're going to get those perpetrators, those pooper-traders. Sound like I was about to say that. But we're going to get those perpetrators. And then the guy right after him is like, well, we actually got the perpetrator. So just so you know, he's been subdued. He's arrested and he's not cooperating with police right now. But we got him. And he's like, oh, damn. See, this is when everybody picks up the tinfoil hat and starts going, screwing it on their heads because of mistakes like that. Because of mistakes just like that. Very interesting, don't you think? That's the director of the FBI. Just so you know, the director of the FBI. Wow. Not the greatest look. I will say that. And now he's going to have to explain himself, which is also not so great. Let's take a look at this, though, too. This has to do with Sarah Beckstrom. So let's take a look at this.
She was just this amazing, courageous young woman, cared a lot, had a big sense of duty to the state and to the United States of America.
This day of Thanksgiving yields to a night of heartache and loss. West Virginia National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom has died. In a solemn ceremony, her remains have been transferred from the hospital to the D.C. Medical Examiner's office. Tonight, President Trump announced Beckstrom's passing during a video address to service members.
Highly respected, young, magnificent person. Started service in June of 2023. Outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now.
Beckstrom and her fellow Guard member Andrew Wolf were shot yesterday afternoon while on a patrol in downtown D.C. in what authorities say was a targeted attack. Thanks for joining us tonight on the News at 11. I'm Larry Miller. Here are 3 things that you need to know right now. Up first, President Trump said that tonight that the 2nd National Guards member shot Andrew Wolf remains in critical condition and is currently fighting for his life. Second, police have identified the gunman as an Afghan national. He was also wounded and taken to the hospital. D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro says that he drove cross country from Washington State to carry out that attack. And
now, by the way, we heard the same thing. Remember the guy who went into Black Bear and the NFL building in New York City? He drove all the way from Vegas to New York City and then did what he did. Remember that? Remember all that stuff? We are living in some wild and crazy times, guys. And yes, I agree. Sarah Beckstrom, may she forever rest in peace. She should not have lost her life the way that she did. That's a guy who claimed to have CTE, and apparently he really did have CTE. All right. He self-diagnosed himself, by the way. But apparently he had CTE. He drove from Vegas with a weapon all the way in his BMW, all the way over to New York City. Then went into that building and opened fire. Right? So we hear these kinds of stories. This is crazy, but this is not the first time we've heard somebody premeditatively pack up, drive cross country to do one act. And again, I doubt that these two were targeted because of who they are, like their job, like because of their names. I think they were just targeted because they were wearing Army fatigues. Real talk.
Finally, the White House says that it will re-examine green cards issued to people from 19 countries of, quote, concern. And that includes Afghanistan, where that 29-year-old gunman migrated from back in 2021. Tonight, we are covering this story from every angle. Let's begin with our Katie Lusso at MedStar Washington Hospital Center. Katie?
And we know so many people were praying and pulling for this young woman, but unfortunately, despite all efforts here at MedStar Washington Hospital Center, we have learned she did not make it. Late Thursday night, the body of Army National Guard Specialist Sarah Beckstrom moved in a dignified transfer from MedStar Washington Hospital Center to the medical examiner's office. Just hours after the president announced she had passed away.
Outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now.
She was just 20 years old. She joined the Guard in 2023, was a graduate of Webster County High School in West Virginia. Thursday night, a vigil held in Webster Springs, West Virginia, her hometown.
And when Jimmy told me it was a girl from Webster Springs, I've been crying ever since.
Beckstrom had reportedly volunteered to work this week so that others could go home to spend Thanksgiving with their families. Thursday night, those who knew her and even those who didn't, absolutely heartbroken.
We're going to come out Sarah strong.
Meanwhile, the president says that Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf remains here at MedStar Washington Medical Center, where he remains in critical condition. In Northwest DC, I'm Katie Lusso, WUSA 9.
I mean, this is obviously, whoops. Yeah, I paused. Okay, good. This is obviously a devastating time for her family, of course, for the National Guard, for the National Guard as well. I mean, just imagine doing this at a time where we should be together with our families, enjoying meals, enjoying, that holiday cheer, getting ready and gearing up for the holidays and just being happy. And so this is a very, very sad moment for her family. And I think for America as well. Because, at the end of the day, this could potentially affect how things are approached in this country now, especially with the National Guard. And then the other thing too is my fear is that this is going to, or this has the potential, not saying that it will, but I do have the fear that this is going to, could incentivize other people to do things like this. Now, we don't know why this particular assailant did what he did. Hopefully they're doing everything they can to get him to start talking and start cooperating. But of course, we all want to know why. And then, of course, the fear is if he was talking to other people, could there be other people getting ready to do the same in their own neck of the woods? That's, I think, a question that we all want to have answered here very, very soon. Because if that's the case, then, of course, I'm hoping that the powers that be do everything they can to stop this kind of madness from happening and growing into something more chaotic. That's what I'm hoping that they get ahead of and they stop this as soon as possible. But do I think bringing in 500 more National Guard troops into DC, do I think that is that's going to resolve this problem? That's going to be the resolution to this problem? No, it's not. It's not going to change anything. It might incentivize more people. But then instead of somebody actually driving from Washington State to Washington, D.C., it's going to be somebody in D.C. And we don't want that. We really don't want that. Real quick, Angel of Disguise, thank you so much for the love. I really do appreciate it, okay? Pascal, wonderful mod, mods, and chat. Yes, to my wonderful mod and to all you guys in the chat. Thank you so much for the love. I really do appreciate it. Yes, you guys are all awesome, all lovely. Shout out to my mods. I'm so thankful for you guys. Real talk, because, you know, some people can be wilding out here. So I do appreciate you guys and for always holding it down here. But again, guys, you know, I worry just as much as anybody else. I wonder if this is going to be, if this is actually a false flag, or if this is just a nothing burger, right? I guess we're going to have to wait as this starts to unfold. I'm sure we're going to get some more information here very, very soon. But the fact that this is somebody who actually was working alongside with America, it scares me. Because it could have been a situation where he was a wolf in sheep's clothing this entire time, or he was radicalized later on, or this is just somebody who lost his mind and has a serious mental health issue. But like I said, I'm hoping that they get down to the bottom of it, focus on that rather than focusing on bringing in more National Guard troops. Let's find out what the problem is first, before we just start throwing other problems on top of the problem that hasn't even been solved yet. You see what I'm saying? But you know for a fact, the tinfoil hat has been on for a lot of people, okay, with this whole situation. And I think only time will tell with everything. I just hope it's a one-time thing. It shouldn't have been a thing, but I really do hope that it is truly just a one-time thing and we don't ever hear about something like this ever again. But give it time. We'll see what happens here, guys. But that is the show, guys. I appreciate all y'all for being here. It really means a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for rapping with me. Thank you. Hopefully you guys all had a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving if you were celebrating it. Hopefully it was a good one for you guys. Hopefully you're not sitting in some, I don't know, in some store right now, stuck in lines because of Black Friday deals and all that. Hopefully that's not the case. I feel like nowadays everyone's just ordering and buying things online now. You know what I mean? The stores aren't as crazy as they may have been back in the day because of online shopping, but anything's possible. Okay. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Again, if there's any more updates, anything to talk about, we'll be back on to talk about it. But I got to hop off on here for now, but I may be back on very soon. So please do me a favor. Hit that like button down below. It helps the show. It helps the show grow and all that. It gets the word out here about what we do here. So hit that like button down below. Hit that reaction button if you're watching on these other platforms. Don't forget to subscribe here on my YouTube channel, please, and thank you. Go check out the Pascal Show clips and Pascal Raw. Subscribe over there too if you get a chance. Hit that notification bell, set it to all so you know whenever I go live, whenever I upload. That'd be greatly appreciated. Hit that join button down below, become a member. Check out my Patreon, and of course check out pascalmerch.com. Got some really great stuff over there. pascalmerch.com. I'm praying for Andrew Wolf. I'm hoping that other National Guardsman pulls through. I'm hoping for a speedy recovery for him, but we'll see what happens. Okay, guys? Fingers crossed. But when we get some more information, I'll let you guys know. Okay? Anyway, guys, it's time to get going. Much love to you guys. Be careful out there. Enjoy your holiday weekend. I'm sure I'll be back on here soon enough, and we'll be talking then soon. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.